for being here. I am Representative Mary Caferro, and I am here to say that, Medicaid is fair. It covers rural and urban Montanans alike. It's affordable, allowing working folks to create upward mobility for themselves and their families, and it creates the freedom that comes from being healthy. As you know, the legislature has passed the bill lifting the sunset on Montana's Medicaid, and now it's up to the governor to do his part and ensure that tens of thousands of Montanans have the opportunity to be healthy. So we're here today to celebrate, and we couldn't be happier. I mean, I am so happy. It's important also to note that 100% of Democrats voted for the Medicaid bill in 2025, 2019, 2015, and 2013. So Democrats have a long history, decades of supporting Medicaid, and that's important to understand that history. As a matter of fact, we're the ones that started the journey a long time ago. We set the table and we created the springboard for what is now broad and bipartisan support. But Democrats have been the one that have been there supporting health care for all of Montanans for a long, long time. I once heard this statement, and I think it's really cool. Democrats were champions of Medicaid before Medicaid was cool. It's also important to note that we have gotten here driven by the hopes and the faith of the people of Montana, and without them, we also wouldn't be here. The public has never given up on us. And with that, I'll tell a quick story about when I was on the doors. So I started campaigning in 2023, good grief, 2003. 2003, I started campaigning, and it's really important to understand how stories have changed of the folks who opened their doors and their hearts to me. It used to be all about uninsured, uninsured, uninsured. We can't afford insurance. We can't get the health care we need, and that has really changed. Two election cycles ago, a man told me a story about his son. What he said was, "Thank you. Thank you for passing Medicaid expansion." And this is why. My son, for the first time in his adult life, has a job, has maintained a job, and is stable. For one reason, because he has access to the mental health care and prescriptions that he needs. That's the story of thousands of Montanans, and that's why we are so happy and here to celebrate. With that, I would like to introduce Senator Laura Smith.
Thank you, Mary. I think about all the years of hard work on this. This is a big moment. So thank you for all your work over the years. This is a really exciting moment. We have our colleagues in the House and Montana Senate Democrats who have together led the charge on renewing Medicaid this session. We, in the Senate, delivered 18 of the 29 Senate votes needed to pass the bill earlier than ever before. And despite delays that we have all heard of, particularly in the Senate, Democrats have pushed forward at every turn to ensure that Montanan families have affordable, accessible health care. And this is something that really, really strikes me as sort of the foundation of being a Democrat is every single time we put people over politics. And so by doing that, Democrats have proven their leadership and commitment to delivering real results for Montanans. And now I would like to introduce my colleague in the Senate, Cora Neumann.
Thank you very much. As a first-term senator, my name's Cora Neumann. I represent Senate District 30, which is Gallatin County, South Bozeman, all the way down to West Yellowstone, a urban-rural district that I'm really proud to represent. When this passed today, I wanted to cheer. But I've learned from my colleagues you're not supposed to do that. But passing Medicaid expansion was my #1 priority this session, and as Democrats, our #1 priority. Personally, as someone who works in rural healthcare and with rural and tribal communities, all of my constituents and all of the people I serve through my work at the Native American Development Corporation, their one request was pass Medicaid expansion. We have seen people, as people have lost their coverage, we've seen families, grandparents go without care because they've been kicked off of Medicaid expansion and not have had the resources that they had before to get the care that they needed. And so this bill helps restore faith in the system and extends care to the 80,000 and secures the care for 80,000 Montanans who are using it right now. And so I don't know a family in Montana that is not impacted by Medicaid expansion, and we're so proud to have passed it. The other thing I learned through this process was that the Montana Medicaid model is a model that the rest of the country is using. That we have had, Montana and the leaders here have had 20, close to 20 states reach out to us to say, tell us how you're doing it. Your program is working so well, because the integration of healthcare and economic empowerment is unique to Montana. And so this is a program, whether our colleagues voted for it or not, this is a program that we can all be very, very proud of. We're leading the charge nationally, and we're making sure that that we put Montana families first. With that, I'd like to turn it over to one of the people I admire greatly and who is really at the heart of this movement, SJ Howell.
Thanks, Cora. Hello, everyone. I'm Representative Howell from House District 100 in Missoula. Really excited to be here celebrating this victory. But we're just getting started. Democrats have always known that just continuing our current program isn't enough. It's better than going backwards, but we're not ready to settle for just what we have. We think the people of Montana need and deserve better. We want Medicaid to really work for Montanans. We want folks to get their applications processed in a timely fashion. We want providers who care for our friends and neighbors on Medicaid to be reimbursed appropriately. When folks have a problem, we want them to get their phone calls answered or have some place they can walk in and get some help. And we want, most of all, for folks to have stability and continuity in their health care. So we've got some bills, and we're still working on those bills. House Bill 386, that's a bill I'm carrying to create 12-month continuous eligibility. That passed the House on second reading last Saturday. We heard it down in Appropriations on Tuesday. Appropriations has it in their hands. This eliminates bureaucracy, streamlines, creates some of that stability for people. I'm really excited about that bill. Appropriations Committee also has House Bill 274, which is continuous eligibility for kids, also a great bill by Representative Staffman. Yesterday in Human Services, we heard House Bill 601. This would create a community assister portal so that individuals and organizations and providers who are caring for folks can also help with those application challenges. It's a great hearing, and hopefully we'll be taking action on that bill, I think, today. We have another bill coming, LC 2541. This is modeled after Representative Caferro's bill, House Bill 230. And this is really about improving customer service, streamlining some of the access to service, reopening offices of public assistance. That bill, it's an appropriations bill, so we'll hear it, we think, shortly after transmittal. And House Bill 750, also by Representative Caferro, to address those reimbursements rates. We'll have that bill down in Human Services tomorrow. And I'll just add that the appropriations team has also been doing some great work making sure that we're investing in Medicaid. So like I said, we're just getting started. We're really excited to keep working to make sure this program continues and gets better as we go. So I'll pass it back to Mary for any of your questions.
Thank you, everybody. Are there questions for any of the speakers?
Oh, no. Okay, I will start with, you sort of beat me to asking about what's next now that we have this. I am just curious, any of y'all, to hear kind of a reflection based on what you know about your respective chamber dynamics on the appetite for some of those. Feel free to kind of go at that list, whatever way you see fit.
Okay. Hal? Sure.
That's a great question. I will note that continuous eligibility passed, I think, 53-47 on Saturday, and That's an improvement from last session of some big number of votes, which, you know, I'm heartened by. I think that the conversation continues. I think Appropriations has been doing some really, really good work. And, you know, based on that, I think there is an appetite and an understanding that we have to make sure that this program works well. We want to make sure this program works well for the state and for providers and for Montanans. Does one of you want to talk about the Senate? I don't want to talk about the Senate.
Oh, that is a great question. And I think my comments will probably both speak to these bills that are hopefully incoming to the Senate and frankly more universally in the Senate. One of the things that I have really noticed, and I think folks in our communities have noticed, and they're frankly excited about based on the feedback we've received, is in the Senate, you know, you certainly have political parties, but what I have noticed is that folks are really voting on behalf of their constituents on a lot of this in a way that I have not seen before, right? That there is an increased recognition of how important healthcare is, not just to people's wellness, but to their economic security, their own wellness, their own community. So I am actually quite hopeful about these bills that will be coming across, and then the bills vice versa.
Just to speak to what's happening in the chambers, but also what's happening with the constituents. So one of the reasons I think this is passed with as many, both obviously all the Democratic votes and so many Republican votes, is because this is not just about individuals on Medicaid. This is about small businesses. There are a very large portion of small businesses in Montana that rely on Medicaid to bring health insurance to their communities. They help keep critical access hospitals open. And so if this is not just about Medicaid recipients, it's about rural communities. And if Medicaid goes away, it's possible that rural hospitals could close. And so I think that all of us are hearing, both Democrats and Republicans are hearing from our constituents from all walks of life, from all industries, that this Medicaid expansion matters to them and matters to their communities. So I also think I want to thank constituents who are reaching out and saying that this matters, because I think that, you know, it's good to see that we're listening.
And I'll add to that, in rural and urban Montana, people were hurt by the debacle of the redetermination process by the Department of Health and Human Services, and it really brought to light all the efficiencies in the system. And the bills that are coming up, that are like the couple that are in Appropriations and the other ones to be introduced, really seek to solve that problem, and therefore there is support from rural and urban legislators. Other questions?
One more, if that's okay, sorry. One thing I've been thinking about a lot is that the 2019 bill, and by extension, what is looking likely to be enacted into law, includes work requirements that were never really rolled out. And I know that we know very, very high percentages of folks on Medicaid expansion are working, but we also know at the same time that any barrier to enrollment does in fact serve as a barrier to enrollment. We also know that there's a great deal of research out there, and a small but a couple examples of the impact of work requirements, and we just haven't seen that play out here quite yet. So I guess what I'm looking for is, I recognize that this is an important and exciting moment for y'all and for many, but I also, just in looking back at 2019 coverage, know that the work requirements were really seen as something to be wary of. So I guess I'm just looking for sort of reflections or concerns or thoughts on if that waiver is approved by this new administration, what that could mean for the program. Long-winded question, sorry.
I think it's a good question, and it's certainly something that we're thinking about too. I mean, I'll note that the 2019 waiver was submitted under the first Trump administration, and while it wasn't taken action on, it sort of sat there. I think the new administration, or the shift in administrations alone, is not a clear path to that waiver being approved or work requirements surviving a court challenge. We need a change in federal law to really make that a clear path. There may well be a change in federal law coming. I am well aware of the debates at the federal level, but I do think that there's a little bit of time for us to see how that looks and for the department to get ready with implementation. I think that in 2019, a lot of thought and care went into crafting the work requirements with the understanding that any work requirement is a barrier. And if that's the way we have to run a program, we want to do it as carefully and as thoughtfully as we can. That being said, you know, if we do end up in a situation where these work requirements are implemented, I know that I'll be paying close attention to what that means for Montanans. I know my colleagues will as well. And if there are problems and challenges, it's the legislature's job to come back and deal with them. And I think that that's what we'll do.
Anyone else? No? Yeah.
Sorry. I do want to say one thing about work requirements, just going back to the fact that close to over 70 people are working, 70% of people are working that are on Medicaid now. And so I feel like what we learned through Medicaid redetermination was just a huge debacle in staffing and tech. And I think that if people are already working, setting up something, and we have a governor who is tech savvy and tries to invest in tech, that's going to probably be a big piece of that. Like, can we set up the infrastructure to make it less burdensome? Because there are so many people who are actually already working, and it's just that process piece, I believe, that can make it so difficult. So I think just a vote for making that process easy if and when it does happen.
And I have no faith in this administration that they can do that based on the debacle of redetermination, and work requirements are silly. Most Montanans are working, and ones that aren't are caring for loved ones who are sick or disabled, or they're going to college, or they have a disability themselves. So we don't need work requirements. You don't have to tell Montanans they need to work. They already are. And then I would add to that, back in the day when Baucus was in office, we're in a similar situation with welfare, because welfare reform went into effect, and it had a very cookie-cutter approach to poverty. So what Senator Baucus did was he protected the people of Montana. He never forgot where he came from, and he worked very hard to craft a program that was specific to Montana, our rural nature, and the people that he represented. That was really important. We had a very successful TANF program. And Tester, you know, continued to support Medicaid, CHIP, all of these programs that are important to Montana. Now we have a new delegation of 4 Republicans, and it's up to them. It's up to them to protect Montanans and to take care of us. We trusted our other guys, Senator Baucus and Senator Tester. We'll see what this delegation can come up with that's in the best interest of Montanans, because this is going to be a big deal if it happens. And with that, we'll wrap up. Thanks, everybody, for being here. Thank you.